Anyways, I'm back. This is actually a very sort of different video, shall we say. And I know I keep saying that, but it is. Because I'm lucky that I have the hardware I do. Um, I have pretty much every system since early 2000. Well, 2006, but I can play all the GameCube stuff because of the Wii that I have, the Nintendo Wii that I have, which, by the way, I am going to be hooking up hopefully this weekend. I do need to find the cables for it. I do have the system still. I have all the hardware for it. I just need to plug it in. I have my PS3 from 2008 still, which I do really want to talk about. And then obviously I have my 360, which I bought used, actually before COVID, actually, so I lucked out there. My Xbox One S, all digital, which I bought in 2019, I think. Yeah, 2019. And then my PS4 Slim, which I bought actually during COVID. My nose is running. Give me a sec. There we go. So, you might be wondering, and obviously I have my original PC that I built back in 2016 as well. Still working. So you might be wondering, why do I still have what would be considered last gen or now retro hardware? And what are my plans with it? Plans? Nothing. I'm still going to be using them as much as I can. I love having the variety of hardware. Not all of it I can capture off of the PS3, unfortunately. I can, but it's a bit of a pain in the ass. There's specific hardware that you need to buy for it. If it wasn't so expensive, I probably would consider, but realistically, like, who would want to watch games or a gameplay video from hardware that's 15 years old, at least? And you might be wondering, how do you know it's 15 years? Because my PS3 is an 80 gig system, which came out in 2008. I can't remember the year. PS3 80 gig. When did it come out? 2007, but I bought it in 2008. Like, you can still buy them, like, you can still buy them. So they originally came out in 2006, which was a 20 gig or 60 gig. And in 2007, it was launched in March 23rd, 2007. It was launched in Europe, Australia, the Middle East, Africa, New Zealand, with only a 60 gig model at that point. And then July 2007, it was obviously released with an 80 gig version with MotorStorm, which ironically I didn't actually get that bundle. Unfortunately, I just got the standard one. Yeah, so I've had this system since 2008. So Yeah, it's been 15 years since I've had the system, which is actually the second longest console that I've had, or still have. And the longest would actually go to my Nintendo Wii that can play GameCube games. I've had that since 2006. So if I do some quick math here, nope, that's the counter. I need a calculator. So we said 2006 minus 2006. I've had that system for 17 years. That system is almost 2 decades. And it still fully works. I don't have a lot of games for it though. I am sort of hunting stuff down for it, like Mario Galaxy 2 I think was on it, I think. There's a few other Wii games I'm hunting down because I want to use the Wii again. Like, I haven't really used it much. The 360 obviously I've been using quite a fair bit. I love having that system. Allows me to obviously have a lot of flexibility with games. From 360 games, obviously, some Xbox original Xbox games. And also to play physical games that obviously, unfortunately, my Xbox One can't because it is the One S, so right before all the series stuff for those wondering. So you might be wondering, why do I still have the PS3 after 15 years? And how's it running? It ironically running very, very well. I've only done one sort of repair on it, if you could call it that. Shall we say a big service on it, and that was to replace the fan of it because the fans back then weren't that great. So I put in a better fan for it, which for some reason I just had it lying in a box years ago. So I put that in and I redid the thermal paste on it, and I think I did that back in 2019. So about 4 or 5 years ago. I might do it next year. I might clean it out and redo it. And I also ended up using better thermal paste. I ended up using, oh god, what was it? I think it was Arctic Silver 5 I think I used. And that's what I used on the 360 as well, which I'm looking at the moment. And that's basically it in 15 years. I did upgrade at one point the hard drive to 1 terabyte, but then I needed that hard drive for another project. So I put back in the original 80 gig drive that it came with, and it is running pretty much perfect. It is a little bit loud, unfortunately, but hey, it is what it is. It's not as loud as the 360, ironically. It's about the similar noise level. But why do I still have the PS3? It is one of my favorite systems I've owned in the last, oh god, probably since 2000, since the Game Boy Advance SP. Let me put it that way. I definitely know I'm dating myself here, but I've used pretty much every, I've owned and or used every Nintendo system that came out. I've used a Game Boy Color, the Advanced SP. I've had 2 3DSs, the Nintendo Wii, the GameCube. So I've owned 7 Nintendo systems in my life. And you might be wondering, where's the 3DS now and where is the Switch? Well, the 3DSs, unfortunately, and I also owned a 2DS for a very, very short time. So the 3DSs, one of them, I had a sort of the black one that they released, which was the new 3DS at that point. I sold it because of a specific reason. I can't remember what the reason was. And then I had the Galaxy one, and I traded that off to buy my original Xbox One back in 2016 when I was in Kingston. So that's where that one went. And as terms of the Switch, I just haven't bought one yet, just due to basically budgets. Whenever I had enough of a budget to buy one, things happened and I had to move the budget around. So unfortunately, I haven't been able to buy a Nintendo Switch yet. I am looking at buying one though. So that's where all that hardware went, in most cases. But like I said, I'm very, very lucky that I have the hardware I do. I haven't had any issues with any of the hardware that I've had in the last number of years. Everything survived. A huge lightning strike here almost a year ago, actually. It was a pretty big strike. It literally hit the house. For those who do not know, I live at my cottage now, so we're on well water. It literally fried the control unit for that well when the lightning struck. But luckily that got repaired within a day. But also on the flip side of that, it killed our internet for a week. So that sucked. But for me, I'm like, okay, that sucks. But I'm thinking, okay, how much hardware did I lose? Because even though I'm on battery backup here, and it's also surge protected, you can still lose hardware even with that. If it's a big enough amount of it, you can still lose hardware. And I'm thinking, okay, out of all the hardware, what am I willing to lose? I was willing to lose the 360 because that's actually the cheapest system that I bought. The PS3 would suck, obviously, considering at that point it was 14 years. That would have sucked. I would have still kept it. It would probably have switched places with my Glaceon Plus behind me. That's where that system would have gone. The Xbox One and PS4, the PS4 would have sucked as well. A little bit more considering I had just bought it the year prior. 2 years ago actually at that point. It was 22 was when that strike hit. And I bought it in 20. So if that would have sucked, obviously, it wouldn't have been under warranty. Might have been under warranty at that point. Maybe. But that would have sucked. The Xbox One, I wouldn't have really cared considering it's like 4 years at that point. So if I had to replace them, either both PS4 and the Xbox together was about $1,500. So yeah, $1,500, $1,500 Canadian to replace them. That doesn't include any games or anything. That's literally just the hardware. Luckily, later that next morning, actually, because it was about this time, about midnight, I fired up all the hardware, both computers, both monitors, all the consoles, fired up, no issues. So, that I was lucky. I was very, very lucky on that one. And the other reason why I like having all the hardware I do is it allows me, obviously, the flexibility to play different games, hunt different games down. Obviously, I have a decent collection of 360 behind me. I don't have a lot for PS4 and PS3. I did back in the day for PS3. I think I had about 20 or 30 games way back in the day for PS3. But back then I was trading off, buying, trading off sort of thing. Now I've sort of kept the games that I wanted to buy. Obviously I have Last of Us behind me for PS3. Complete Saga for PS3. And Terminator Salvation for PS3. Those are the 3 physical games I have for PS3. I do have some digital games as well. Like I have Persona 5, Last of Us, and a few other ones as well. But I love having that system because obviously at that point in 2008, it was also the first Blu-ray player we had. So, and now I'm actually surrounded by 3 Blu-ray players. The PS4, the PS3, and my original computer are all Blu-ray players. So it's like, ugh. Kind of funny, I guess. So, kind of works out, I guess. So, am I hunting down any games for any of those systems? PS3, not really. Obviously, I would love to have a physical copy of Persona 5, but I'm happy with obviously with the digital version. I am lucky that I did find a complete set or copy, I guess, of Last of Us, which is nice to have for me. 360, not really, at least on the North American side of things. But I'm looking more like Japanese stuff at this point, hardware wise as well as game wise. But that's expensive. That's quite expensive. Yeah, it's a couple $100 per system, and sometimes a couple $100 per game as well. So I have to think about that one. But in terms of the PS3, there are a few games that I am looking to get. But like I said, I don't really use the PS3 a lot. Because obviously I have the 360, my Xbox One, my PS4, obviously the 2 PCs. So the PS3 is sort of left, I guess. It's not neglected. Like I use it, like I turn it on just to make sure that it's still working and heat cycle everything so I don't have any issues. And after 15 years of owning it, I'm actually surprised like how well built they are. Like I've had friends way back in the day, like 2006, 2007, well, mostly 2007, 2006, and even 2005, obviously, when the original 360s came out, and the whole Red Ring of Death at that point was a thing, and obviously on the PS3 side, you had the Yellow Light of Death, that whole thing. I've had friends replace units, and they fail, and just headaches. That's why I typically don't buy the first run of any hardware, because there's always going to be issues. I always wait at least a year for stuff to fix itself. Like when I bought my Xbox One, for example, when I was in Kingston, that was a used unit. I think I paid like under $70 for it. Granted, it was a used 500 gig unit. I'm like, I don't care. It is what it is. Like I can play Halo, I can play Call of Duty, all this other stuff on it. So I do love having the PS3, even though, like I said, I can't capture off of it easily. It is a nice system to jump back to when I don't want to play some of my newer stuff. And that's what I love about retro hardware is nowadays games for them are, depending on the game obviously, is pretty cheap. There are a few exceptions, which from what I found, at least on the 360 side for some reason. I'm just looking. The Simpsons game, for example, that was an expensive one for me to buy used. I think that was about $50 or close to 50. I think it was like 45 or something for it used. And you're probably wondering, like, why did you buy it? Well, and that's sort of the thing is, like, when I hunt down games for any system, PS3, 360, I look for more of the. Sometimes I go for more of the common stuff, but primarily I go for more of the uncommon, or games that people might not remember existed. Like I have Deadpool. Obviously, that one was a hard one for me to get a hold of. Child of Eden, which was a very, very early Kinect game for the 360 back in the day. That game took me a little bit to find. I have Lollipop Chainsaw. That game took me months to find. Sometimes I can find a game within like a few days. But for some reason, Lollipop Chainsaw took me 6-7 months to find for 360 because like I could find it all day long for PS3 all day long. The problem is I needed a 360 version because I can't capture off of the PS3, so trying to find a 360 version was kind of hard to find, but I did end up getting a good price on it. I paid like $5 for the disc and I'm like, that's great. So I was happy with finding that one. I have Angry Birds, which again is a very, very obscure game now. Not many people remember it. I remember when it came out on iOS and Android way back in the day. I was actually surprised they even made a 360 version for it of it. So that was kind of fun to actually find. And then obviously I have some of the more common stuff like Halo and stuff like that, like Halo 3, Halo 4, Halo Reach, Combat Evolved Anniversary. I have Kung Fu Panda is another sort of semi-obscure one. What else do I have that's kind of obscure? I have Lego Hobbit, I think, or is it Lord of the Rings? Give me a second here. Lego Hobbit is the one I have. I'm still sort of hunting down Lord of the Rings at this moment. But I love having the option to play some of the retro stuff. And like I said, having the PS3 for this long after 15 years and having no issues with it is kind of a miracle, because way back in the day, we're talking 10 years ago, that was literally the only system I had really at that point. Like, yes, I had the Wii and stuff like that at that point, but primarily I was using the PS3. And I'm now surprised with looking back. I'm like, with how much use that system got over the years by running DVDs, Blu-rays, all the different games I've had for it, all the peripherals from the Rock Band stuff, I believe it was. Yeah, Rock Band stuff hooked up to it. I'm surprised it's still working. And for me, I take care of my stuff. I don't let stuff just sit and collect dust. Like I really should actually unplug the PS3. Yeah, PS3 and 360 and just give them a good dust off. Because they are quite dusty, unfortunately. That's just the room that I'm in. My ceiling is a bit unconventional. It's a drop down ceiling, so I have like pipes and cables running through the ceiling, so it drops that sort of crap down below. So I do have to dust them off, but the PS3 has just been solid. Like no issues. Starts up every single time I want to jump on and play. It's a very, very good system. Now, would I recommend buying one in 2023? That's up to you. If you can find one cheap enough and in obviously decent condition, I would go for it. The games are dirt cheap now. They could be a little bit harder to find if you don't know where to look. Like Amazon's a good place to look. eBay, obviously, and then any retro store really would have PS3 stuff as well. That's where I bought most of my PS3 stuff. Like the two that I've mentioned, Complete Saga and Last of Us were bought from the same store. Not same day actually, 2 different days. But you can also try like a GameStop or something like that. They could try to bring that stuff in. They helped me out. There's a couple locations where I was living in the city that were one of them was able to bring in games for me. Sometimes very, very obscure games like Deadpool they brought in for me. They brought in... No, actually 2 locations actually brought in a couple games for me. One of them I actually did have to send back because the disc was scratched completely. So luckily enough, that was just a 1-for-1 swap. I didn't have to pay again. So you could try like your local game store like GameStop or wherever you would typically buy your games. See if they could help you out there. Not all will, considering it is now considered a dead platform. But you never know. It doesn't hurt to ask. And the game that I actually had to get twice was Terminator Salvation, actually, for PS3. Like, I didn't realize the disc was completely scratched until I thought, okay, yeah, there's going to be some... So when I put it in originally, when I picked it up, it wasn't loading. I thought, okay, that's a little strange. Maybe I put the disc in backwards. Same thing. Disc can't read. I'm like, okay, maybe there's some scratches or some dust or something on the back. I'll take a microfiber cloth and see what I can do. And I've had luck with doing just that before. Same thing. Didn't want to read the disc, and I'm like, okay. At that point, I thought, okay, maybe there's some more crap and stuff. I'll go through and actually clean it. Same thing, and at that point, I'm like, okay, there's something wrong with the disc. So I went to the window because obviously I needed a natural light, and I was using artificial light. And I took a look at the back of the disc in the sun, and it was pretty beat up. And I had one of 2 options. I could either just bite the bullet and say, okay, fine, forget it. I'm not going to get a working copy. Or I could call the location that brought the game in for me, see what they could do. And I basically said, hey, listen, like, I know you guys just brought this game in for me. Unfortunately, it's completely scratched. System's not even registering the disc. Is there any way you could bring in another copy? They're like, yeah, sure, no problem. Once it's here, we'll just swap them. I'm like, awesome. I've had that happen twice. The first time that had happened was for... I'm just trying to think now. I think it was GTA 4 back in 2010, 2011, I think. I think it was like 2010 or 2011. Same thing. Unfortunately, I didn't end up actually getting another copy because they took the game back, but they're like, yeah, unfortunately, we had no other copies. I'm like, okay, fine. So, but on the PS3 side of things, like, I'm pretty happy with sort of the small collection I have. It's most of the games that I want anyways. But obviously for 360, again, I'm pretty happy with what I have. I have some of the newer, obviously I have some of the more well-known stuff, more of the common stuff, and then I have some of the sort of the obscure stuff like the Simpsons game, Kung Fu Panda, Angry Birds, The Hobbit, Deadpool, like some of those really weird ones that can get quite expensive actually. I think the last time I looked for Deadpool for 360, I think it was on Amazon, was like $50 or something like that. It was something like that. Anyways, what is it as of there we go. Yeah, it's like $60, just over $60 right now for it. It's like $65. The Xbox One version is like $76, $77, and that's used, by the way. Yeah, so yeah, like you can get them, but they aren't cheap. Like 60, obviously $65 for the 360 version. You can buy obviously cheaper versions. 65 is for new. Obviously, you can, if you don't care about new, you can buy used for like $25. I think I paid less than that actually. I think I paid like $15 or so for mine. So if you don't mind spending that, go for it. Like, I actually am looking at actually finishing up Deadpool myself after I run through Halo Reach again. But yeah, like, I do love having the flexibility of newer hardware mixed with some of the older hardware. And I'm surprised after 15 years, the controller, which is a DualShock 3 6-axis, is still as smooth as it was. I might have to go in and open it up, clean it up, because the front is completely dusty. But not too bad. But yeah, this one was just trying to see if I can find the year on the back of this controller. No, I can't, unfortunately. Because sometimes they'll put the year of manufacture on the back of the controllers. Yeah, I could probably look up the model number. But yeah, like, I'm very, very surprised that the system is still running. Like, if I look at the model, or the year that this controller was built, and this is just an Xbox One controller, non-Series S or X, obviously. This one was... Yeah, it doesn't... I thought it would also tell me the year of manufacture. And I have already serviced this controller because I had some sticky buttons on it, like this. The power button was sticky, so I have pierced the warranty sticker. I really thought there was a year of manufacture. So this is the 1708 model for the controller. Nope, I don't want to break the controller. Oops. Huh. Hope the console now turns on still. Yep, it does. So actually, give me a sec here. So I just grabbed my phone because I need to actually connect to the I can basically control the Xbox through my phone. So I needed to so then I can actually control the thing. Remote play, so then I can actually turn it off. So yeah, I love having the flexibility of obviously having some retro stuff, which is the 360 and PS3, and the 2006 Nintendo Wii that I have. But I also love playing some of the newer stuff from anyways as well. So it's nice to have. Do I recommend the 360 now? Again, if you can find one at a decent price, I would say go for it, because again, games are relatively cheap, systems are relatively cheap-ish. I bought my 4 gig, which I put in I think a 250 gig drive during COVID for like $80. So little bit expensive, but for me, I was willing to pay that. So like I said, it's all up to you basically. For me, I love having some of the retro stuff. But I also love having the newer stuff as well. If I could obviously buy the Series X and PS5, would I do it? Yes. But the problem for me is I'm not working. I don't do YouTube or Twitch full time. It's sort of a hobby of mine. And unfortunately, I can't afford that stuff at the moment. And that's not me asking for help and all that crap. It's not. It's me having to basically bust my butt and look for a job. And that doesn't mean I'm not looking for a job now, or I'm still am looking for a job. But the problem for me is just the area that I live in. Like, literally, there's literally nothing around. So that's sort of the problem. But hey, it is what it is. So what does that mean in terms of content? It means I'm going to be basically doing a lot of content over the next little bit. I'm rerunning Halo Reach right now to relearn it. Then I'm probably going to be doing it on Heroic right after that. So be prepared for that Let's Play as well. And just go keep running those games until I get the achievements. But what does that mean for PS3? Unless I can get the hardware required to be able to capture off of it, I'm just going to be doing that stuff in my own time. I'm still going to be doing Last of Us on that to get through that game at least once on PS3, so then I can actually say I've finished a PS3 run of that game. Then I'm probably going to run through Remastered to make sure I have that game set properly. Not set properly, that's the wrong word. I want to make sure that I actually have that game installed, which is actually what I'm doing right now, for both the remaster and part 2, because I actually want to sort of see what all the hoo-ha was about part 2. So there will potentially be a series for Last of Us Remastered on PS4, maybe one for part 2. I'm not 100% sure on that, depending on what I'm doing in terms of work and all that. But yeah. Okay, so I do have them installed. That's good. So yeah, like, will I be buying the PC version of Last of Us? Again, that's a game that I've been looking at since it came out. But again, I'm not working. I don't have the budget to afford it at the moment. But again, that's not me asking for help and all that crap. If I want it, I have to go out and earn the money to pay for that stuff. I'm tired of trading off games to afford games nowadays. And that goes the same with hardware as well. Like, I would love to buy a new laptop, but because I've had this laptop since 2018, I think. Yeah, I think it was 2018. And it's still a great unit. It still runs everything that I want to be able to run off of it. I can edit off of it. I can do all that stuff off of it. But the problem is it's not really up to date now. It's running Windows 10, which is still somewhat current. But they are basically forcing people to upgrade to Windows 11. So that could pose some issues there. But that's just the price of hardware these days. Is just like, you can't buy a laptop, well, a good laptop for under $1,500 anymore. You have to spend at least $2 to get something decent. So I would love to replace this. I would love to rebuild my original computer. There's a lot of hardware that I want to buy, and it's all very, very expensive. Like, just to rebuild my computer, just to get it to run Windows 11, no major upgrades for graphics or power supply, we're talking $600, and that was last year's prices. So take that with a grain of salt. So basically, I am very lucky that I have the hardware that I do. I use all the hardware, not all the time, but I do use it as much as I can. Like, I've just updated this laptop for the first time in almost a year, actually. I hardly don't use the laptop anymore because I'm not traveling. I did take it with me out west last year for the road trip, and I did take it with me when I went skiing in February, just in case if I needed to offload footage and stuff like that. I have the laptop I can just dump to. But I'm not really using it as much as I used to, and it's sort of now is just like, why am I even bothering to have a laptop? But I know in the future I probably will need one, so I'll probably just keep one. So what does that mean? Should you buy retro hardware now? Basically is, if you want to play some older stuff like Last of Us from PS3, or other games that don't have a newer variant, like, let's say Last of Us has obviously the remaster on PS4, stuff like that, or sometimes the games might not be backwards compatible on Xbox One, because apparently they're closing that program down. So having a 360 might be your only option if you want to play those games that aren't compatible. So there's that. But it is what it is. I enjoy having the hardware that I have, and like I said, like, even though I don't use it all the time, I do try to use the hardware as much as I can. I do use the PS3 not as much as I would like to. The PS4 I use decently. 360 I'm starting to get back into using more because of running Halo Reach and stuff like that for 360. Xbox One I use kind of constantly, considering it's the closest system that's already sitting. It's literally sitting on my desk. So it is what it is for that. But yeah, I do love having the older hardware at my disposal, meaning I can jump to any unit I want at any point. It does get a little bit confusing with cabling though, because I have like 3 controllers sometimes on my desk at once. I only have 4 controllers. I have 360, PS4, PS3, Xbox One. And out of those 4 controllers, ironically, the Xbox 360 and the PS4 controller are my favorite. And then followed up by the Xbox One, and then PS3, unfortunately, is last in that ranking, at least for me personally, because the problem for me is, like, I have decently large hands. Like, I'm a tall guy, like I'm 6 feet. The controller is a little bit small. Like, this is obviously, like, for me to play comfortably. Let me actually stand for a sec. Like, for me, like, this is, it's cramped. For me. It's actually cramped. Whereas I grab the Xbox One, or sorry, PS4 controller, it's a little bit easier for me to grab and hold it properly. I'm not, like, cramped. Like, I'm not like this on it, like I was sort of on the PS3 controller. Like, I am sort of hunched over because it is a very, very small controller. Xbox One's not that bad. I actually like the button layout for the Xbox One over the center position joysticks on PS3, PS4, stuff like that. So yeah, I enjoy having the hardware I do. Like I said, I'm very lucky that I have the hardware I do. But if you can get used hardware in a decent condition at a decent price, would I recommend it? Yeah. Even if you just want to tinker around on older hardware with older games and stuff like that, and you don't really care about some of the newer stuff, go for it. That's the other reason why I love having older hardware is there's so many new games coming out every single month. Sometimes even multiple games releasing in the same week, sometimes even on the same day. So it can get quite confusing, and stuff like that. Like, I have a huge knowledge of video games, considering I've played pretty much everything from Game Boy up, basically, from the Game Boy Color, which, god dang, when did that system come out? Like, I'm thinking that would have been like 2002, 2003, I think. Nope, I was wrong. 1998 is when it came out. And I didn't get it until probably 2001, I would like to say. And then obviously I went to the Advanced SP after that. So yeah, I have a huge knowledge of games and stuff like that because I've played pretty much everything. I do love playing some of the older stuff through emulators and stuff like that, even though I don't recommend it. But I love playing those games, even though I might have to emulate it. I love playing those games on native hardware. And what do I mean by native hardware? Hardware that game was meant for. So, for example, Last of Us. You could emulate it now if you don't have a PS3 or PS4 to play the remaster or obviously the original. But again, I don't recommend it. But you can if you want to go down that route. Like I said, I don't recommend it. So for me, I love having that hardware. And I'm lucky I still have that hardware. Like I said, I bought the 360 right before COVID. Like, literally, I bought it, I think, like, January, I think? When did I buy it? When did I buy it? Where is that list here? Nope. Wrong folder. Yeah, January of 2020. So I think it started like May, I think. So like I've had the system for a long time, pretty much since the start of COVID. And granted, I paid $80 for literally a 4 gig unit and a power supply for it. That was it. Because I already had a controller for it, and some other hardware, obviously. And yeah, $80 is a little steep, but I was willing to pay it because I kind of wanted one. Because the one I was using, I had to get back to the person who I borrowed it from. So it is what it is there. So if you can get, basically my point is, if you want to be able to play some older stuff and the games that you want to play aren't compatible with newer gen stuff, then go ahead, look around, like eBay, Amazon, sometimes Kijiji if you are in that area. Any retro store that's around you, they would probably have that sort of stuff. And if not, they could also help you out and point you in the right direction on trying to locate, or not locate, but hunt down that hardware. And sometimes they could even bring it in if they can. For me, I don't really buy used hardware. I typically prefer buying used games than I do used hardware. But with the not PS3, 360, I was kind of in a pickle. Like, I kind of need a 360. There aren't any new 360s being made. So my only option was to buy used, and I got lucky. So basically, again, it's your choice. If you don't mind playing some of the older stuff and that's not compatible with, let's say, the newer stuff like PS4, PS5, and you can find older hardware for decent price, why not? Or if you know somebody who's looking at getting rid of it, that's another alternative. But yeah, like I said, like, and again, if you have older hardware, take care of the stuff. It will last if you take care of it. It's like a car. Think of it that way. If you do regular maintenance on your car, like regular oil changes, tire changes, all that sort of stuff, it should last 20, 30 years. And that goes for computers as well. Like, I've worked a couple summers in pension plans, in an IT department, and I've literally had to deal with computers that literally were going to e-waste because they were useless, and they were just covered in dust. Like, the inside was dust covered, and literally all I would need would be a good dust out and the systems would be working again. But they wanted to move forward with newer hardware, so I had to pitch them. Well, not pitch, but basically put them in e-waste. And it's just surprising to see, like, how much hardware is nowadays going to e-waste. And I have a ton of hardware, like I said, and all of it is working because I take care of it. And it's funny, is like, whenever I buy like a used game nowadays, but which was the last time I bought one was, I think, August of last year. And they're like, hey, do you want like the protection for it? I'm like, no, I'm pretty good with my games and stuff like that. Like, I have stuff from like the PS3 days and stuff like that. And they're like, and they were surprised that I still have stuff from PS3 days. And they're like, wow, that system must be getting up there. I'm like, yeah, it's about 14 years. But again, like, I'm pretty careful with my stuff. I don't move it that often. I do sort of regular maintenance on it. Like I said, I do dust it off once. I think I do dust off the consoles like once or twice a week, with just a microfiber cloth, like what you would use to clean your glasses or computer screens and stuff like that. And you should be fine. Like, if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of it, like, tearing down the systems, there are great guides. iFixit is the one that I've used before for PS3, 360, Xbox One teardown on the controller, and it works. And it's just surprising to see now, like, how many people don't take care of the hardware that they have, and you're paying sometimes couple $100 for hardware, and it's like, if you don't take care of it, of course it's going to fail. Like, there's been so many posts on the r/PS3 subreddit and r/360 subreddit recently over the last year and a half or so that basically saying, hey, like, the system has failed, has died, whatever, and it's just like, wow. I'm surprised that they are still failing. Obviously, they're getting very, very old at this point, and I'm also betting that those people have never ended up actually opening them up, cleaning them out, and doing the preventive maintenance. And like, when I opened mine up back in 2019, it was for literally a clean out of dust and stuff like that, because I knew it was kind of dusty, and redo the fan, because like I said, I had a fan for it sitting in a box, new one actually, and that's all I was going to do. But I'm thinking, okay, I should also do the thermal paste as a preventative measure, because at that point it was 2019. I've had the system since 2008. A little bit hard. I should just do it, and I did, and that's what I did with the 360. Like, I did it over an evening, actually over the holidays, I think 2 years ago now. It wasn't that hard. Just follow a teardown guide and you're good to go. Ironically, the PS3 was actually easier than the 360. So, at least on the slim side of things for the 360. But anyways, yeah, like, I do love having older hardware. It is a little bit sometimes, what's the right word? Not annoying, but there's a specific word I'm thinking of. And I'm just sort of thinking, I'm like, why do I still have this hardware? At least on the PS3 side of things. And then I remembered, oh yeah, the PS4 is not backwards compatible. Silly mistake from Sony's part. But, hey, they wanted to go down that route. They didn't want to go down that road, I should say. They didn't. And they're realizing now, like, oh, crap, maybe we should have done some backwards compatibility. And that's what they did with the PS5. But granted, they only went back to PS4. Kind of wish they went back to PS3. And same with the PS4, should be backwards compatible with PS3 games. But, hey, it is what it is. They probably explored that route and realized it'd be way too expensive for them to do all that, so they're just like, let's not. But with PS5, obviously, they were able to do it somehow. Probably through emulation, probably. Unless I would be very, very surprised if there's an actual chip, or whatever, on that board. I'd be very, very surprised. If anybody knows, please feel free to leave it in the comment section below. But yeah, I love having the older hardware. Again, it gives me flexibility to play what I want, without having to go through emulation, through emulators and stuff like that. But yeah, like, would I keep all this hardware forever? No. I know I'm going to probably be keeping the 360 for a long time unless it fails. The PS3 I probably would keep once it has failed, considering it was the first Blu-ray player I had. Went with me to college, so it's basically sentimental to me at this point after 15 years, which is crazy to think that a system that was built in 2008, 15 years ago, is still working. Take care of the hardware that you have and it will last.